guest today, Dr. Timothy Loh. Dr. Loh is currently a member of the board of directors at Farrer Park Hospital, Singapore. Prior to this, he served as the CEO of Farrer Park Hospital as well as Gleneagles Hospital, and he has had more than 30 years of tenure in both public and private sectors. He has had experiences in biopharmaceutical industry, the medical devices industries, and the CRO industries. He has also been conferred the prestigious Icons of Healthcare Award. He is also a champion of rare diseases. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome Dr. Loh to our LinkedIn Live series. How are you, Doctor, today?
I'm good, Tanvi. Thank you very much for inviting me to this forum.
You know, it's not every day that you get to ask a doctor how he is, because normally a doctor is asking you how you are. So this is a little bit of change of pace for me as well. Let me begin by asking, you have been a CEO so many times. You are on the board of one of the most prominent hospitals in Singapore. This crisis, as it has been unfolding, what have you discovered about yourself as you're trying to lead your people and yourself through this crisis? What have you observed may have shifted or become different?
Well, this crisis has shown that all of us are equal, and we are as strong as the weakest link. We do need one another to be successful. No one is greater than the other. And with this new pandemic that is facing all of us, in order to stay united, we need to be together to fight the virus. We need to have the right attitude, brainstorm together, look at every angle, and listen to everyone's view. This is because everyone in the world plays an important role. Be it China, the US, Europe, or Asia Pacific, we should learn from one another, shorten the learning curve to flatten the curve.
That just, feeds in so beautifully to what I was just saying before we got you in, is to just understand the diversity of experiences of this crisis. But I think the added dimension that you're bringing in is understanding that every piece matters, everyone matters, and it is not about fixing blame, but understanding the interdependencies of the system that we are in. And the more we understand and respect that interdependency, the more we can lead in a post-pandemic world. Did I understand that correctly?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember I was talking to Wouter, who's the president of GE in Asia. And he gave this beautiful analogy, which I think perfectly fits with what you were saying. He said, when you have a 100-piece puzzle, you can put the puzzle together, 99 pieces. But if you are missing the 100th piece, the puzzle will not be complete. And what I'm hearing you say is that everybody's role matters. That is the 100th piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
It's absolutely correct. You hit the nail.
So let me ask you, Doctor, what do you think is the one thing that we need to do better? Like, is there anything that we seem to be getting wrong right now? Like, I think that this rush to the post-pandemic thing, I understand. I want post-pandemic as much as anybody else. But I think we need to slow down, because we will otherwise miss an opportunity to really reflect and grow and change. So I think that's one thing we're getting wrong. But in your line of vision, in the work that you're doing, what do you think that one thing that we could be doing better?
Well, Tanvi, I would say that there are two things that we need to do. One is to practice personal hygiene constantly and diligently, like hand washing, at least 20 seconds, 20 minutes to be washing your skin off. Social distancing and wearing masks under current situation. And secondly, practice empathy in our everyday life. Everyone has a different role to play, and together we will be united as the power of one. Hence, we need to put ourselves in the other person's shoes to truly see the world through their eyes in a given context or situation. It's human nature to assume that others will think and feel the same as us in a particular situation. But of course, this isn't always the case. And the first step in empathizing with others is to suspend our own view of the world around us in order to truly see it through their eyes. We need to spend time getting to know and understand each other's needs, wants, and why people are doing what they are doing. This means observing and engaging with people in order to understand them on a psychological as well on an emotional level. We need to listen to what everyone is saying, thinking, doing, and feeling. And we can use the what, how, why framework. Let me give you an example. Get to know what the elderly have been going through during this trying period. How did they cope with it? And why are they not taking the advice of staying at home? It could be that they are staying alone, they are scared, and they prefer to be surrounded with people and to have social connections. For us and for the younger generation, we connect through technology. But for the elderly, they may not, as that is not their way of life, and they may not have the ability nor resources to do so. And the more we reflect on how and why the people might behave in a certain way, the more we can empathize with them and come up with a solution, instead of to be seen that we are forcing them to stay at home and not showing care and concern for them. And in order to create positive experiences and get people to buy in, we need to understand their needs, their frustrations, and their pain points. And this requires building empathy. And to me, this is the starting point of anything we want to do.
Yes, I agree. Our worldview gets so limited by what is immediately around us, right? So if I have a family with young kids, I tend to see the world as though it's only full of families with young kids.
That's
Uh,
right.
and if I am not someone who's dealing with elder care, I tend to assume that that's not really an issue. I mean, that's human nature, right? It's we really tend to see the world from our own perspective. But to be able to walk in another person's shoes, I think is a very, very key skills that leaders need to have. So one of the things I was telling one of my clients is that there are even, forget about age differences. You were talking about the elderly and them wanting to stay at home and not wanting to stay at home.
Not wanting to stay at home.
In Singapore, certainly we've seen this, that they're not quite sure why, because we are getting on Skype and we are doing LinkedIn Live, and here's an entire generation that, well, for them going down was the only way to have human connection. So, but even there are other, I feel, variables that people need to take into account. So, for example, in Singapore, we are such a multicultural society.
Mm-hmm.
Even culturally, how we think about, crisis and resilience can differ, right? So for example, the Asian culture, when we think about crisis, we tend to think of it in a collectivist way. We tend to lean in on our networks a little bit more. But for people who are, coming from more individualistic cultures, for some of them, they may have a much smaller span of support around them right now than some of us who are used to connecting. So for a moment, step outside your demographics and step outside your psychographics and step outside your cultural upbringing and ask, is there a different experience? of what is unfolding right now. So I think that those were some great perspectives. But let's talk about your industry, right? Because healthcare is under spotlight right now, and we are all looking to healthcare to save the world like never before. And I think one of the things that will happen as a result of this crisis is that we are going to see a lot more focus. I'm hoping a lot more focus and investment in healthcare as well. What do you think, in particular, your industry could be doing today to prepare for a post-pandemic world? What is it that a lot of them are really, I think, firefighting at the moment? So the ability to kind of step back and think the longer-term perspective, maybe even a luxury for some of them. But someone like you, who's had 30 years of experience, you've seen the healthcare industry from every angle, whether it's rare diseases or medical devices or, the administration of healthcare. I'm so curious to see what is your advice on what can your industry be doing to, prepare for the post-pandemic world?
Well, let me use the hospital as an example, right? So just take Farrer Park Hospital. Farrer Park Hospital is a pretty new private hospital. It's been around for about close to 5 years. And we've always been incorporating technology and the infrastructure to expedite processes, thinking ahead, future-proofing the hospital for the next 20 years. So the hospital is actually designed and built with the pandemic in mind. And this is to minimize risks and contact and be ready to handle a pandemic even before this pandemic occurred. It was planned more than 8-9 years ago, and it's now like 5 years old. And for example, we've set up telemedicine years ago from its inception, and washable hospital beds. If you look at most hospitals, they just wipe down the hospital beds because of the electronics within the beds itself. You cannot wash electronic hospital beds. But we have put in place washable beds, and why? It's because washable beds gives us superior infection control. And if you look at a pandemic now, with any infection, whether it's virus or any other infection, the thing that comes into mind is safety for the staff and safety for the caregivers. And so infection control comes into the picture, right? So in the healthcare industry, you also need to look forward and see what is needed in the future. So robotics, for example, robotics for logistics, drones to collect or deliver materials or drugs or medication or tests that needs to be done when you are in an area or in a country which is very far, and you can't get to the place easily. So all these has to be planned beforehand, before the pandemic occurs, and these are put in place so that should it occur, we're at least prepared. And all of us need to change our behavior and our practice of personal hygiene. And with this post-pandemic, you'll see a lot of personal hygiene behaviors being changed, like wearing a mask when one is feeling unwell. If you look at Japan and Korea, it's a norm. It's their culture, but it is not in many other cultures. It's not in Western culture usually. So perhaps certain thoughts, certain behavioral changes need to be put in place.
Yes, I think our way of thinking, our way of behaving, our way of interacting in that interpersonal space for an entire generation of people will get redefined because of what we are experiencing right now. And you're right. I mean, I remember when I had visited Japan and people were wearing masks, and I thought that was kind of strange. Like, it seemed like a cultural anomaly to me. And here's the thing, everything is a cultural anomaly till it hits home to you. And I think that is kind of the point that you have been making, is that, when we look at others and their experiences and their practices, to be able to see it from a lens of appreciation and how we can incorporate it in our own well-being and practices that allow health to thrive is an important perspective. It's fascinating because I feel like there is going to be a lot of cross-pollination of, when we're talking about healthcare infrastructure, right? Using drones or the washable beds or what have you. It's interesting because I think that Toyota, I believe, at one point in time had served as a model for healthcare delivery to be just in time. But I think now the world is looking at healthcare and asking, what are the kind of innovations that we are going to see in healthcare that we can then start applying to the other industries. And that's, again, I think, when I talk about the crisis is the curriculum, I think one of the things I'm hoping will come out of this crisis is this interdisciplinary learning that needs to happen across sectors of healthcare learning from retail, and retail learning from the food and beverage industry and how they manage to get their people around and keep there. So I think that I think what I'm going to do, Dr. Low, I'm going to create a syllabus right now. I've called it the crisis as a curriculum, but I'm going to start writing a syllabus. So one point of, like you said, was appreciate diversity, but the other point is, cross-industry learning is going to become much more important than ever.
It shortens the learning curve in all industries with cross-pollination.
Yes, that's right. It shortens the learning curve, so you'll be able to graduate much faster. So we're almost out of time, Dr. Low, but one final question. What gives you the faith and courage to go through what we are going through right now that maybe can inspire the rest of us who are watching you right now?
Well, being a medical doctor, saving lives and taking care of others, practicing humanity and caring for all my staff has always been a way of life for me. And during a crisis, that is where people are looking out to their leaders to lead them through this trying period. Therefore, as a leader, we must stay positive, stay connected with your people, provide them with encouraging words, motivate them, and stand by them on the same battlefield. Better still, lead the battle. And with unity, we can weather through any challenge and stay strong together. And I hope through modeling the way, everyone will show care and support for all the people who are sacrificing their lives for others. Your kind words, your actions will inspire the healthcare personnel and all the frontliners to press on. So continue to demonstrate humanity. There are many, many unsung heroes out there. Let's do our part. Lend a helping hand to others whenever you can. Though we use lots of technology now, which I call high tech, do remember that we need to also have high touch, care and share. And with high tech and high touch.
Yes, those are very, very inspiring words. Thank you, Dr. Low, for your time. I'm really grateful that in the middle of everything that's going on, you were able to join the show. We've learned a lot about somebody who's an insider to the industry and a leader that everybody looks up to. So thank you so much for your time, for being here. And for the rest of you, I hope you'll be able to join us in the next 4 days as we bring more leaders like Dr. Low from different industries. Remember what we talked about, cross-pollination, because here is a chance for us to learn together to create a world that is truly business unusual. So I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.